On this Friday night, a prescription to fix Canada's ailing healthcare system. The 5-point plan from some Ontario unions.
If Premier Ford doesn't like our plan, then what's his?
Plus, how medical workers are calling it quits. Mounting monkeypox angst, the vaccine supply concerns, and calls for a federal strategy to stop the spread. Retaliation ramping up. Beijing's latest response to the U.S. House Speaker's trip to Taiwan. And a menu that's really the cat's meow.
In my time working here, I have learned to never underestimate how crazy some cat crazy people are.
The restaurant cooking up fancy feline-inspired food for humans.
Global National with Farah Nasser.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. The latest job numbers for Canada and the U.S. telling two very different stories about the state of our economy. South of the border, job losses had been forecast, but new data out today shows more Americans are working than ever before, defying fears about a post-COVID recession. Now here, despite forecasts for moderate job growth, Canada's economy shed jobs for the second month in a row. New data from Statistics Canada shows 31,000 jobs were lost in July. Once again, the healthcare sector saw a decline, with a loss of 22,000 workers, and COVID burnout is playing a role. Last month, over 11% of nurses across the country called in sick at least once, and more than 21% had to work paid overtime. Also, according to StatsCan, there are more than 140,000 job vacancies in healthcare right across the country. Tens of thousands of those job openings are in Canada's largest province. But as Ross Lord explains in our top story tonight, those on the front lines of healthcare in Ontario and those in charge are increasingly at odds on how to fix the healthcare staffing crisis.
Every day, there are more voices in Canadian healthcare crying for help. Among those growing increasingly desperate are emergency room doctors.
The situations that I see where my patient with a dislocated shoulder is screaming for hours, and I can't find a better nurse to put that back in.
Senior nurses leaving the profession or leaving emergency medicine nursing, which is a huge problem.
Nurses are burnt out or staving off exhaustion.
Begging for the public to understand that the workload is unsafe, it is unsustainable, and we need to do something to encourage nurses to stay in the profession.
In Ontario, 3 healthcare unions are pleading with the government of Premier Doug Ford to listen or at least work with them to make improvements. The union's 5-point plan includes supporting the existing healthcare workforce, repealing Bill 124, which restricts wage increases, financial incentives to keep staff from leaving, incentives for nurses and others who are licensed but not working, and significantly expanding post-secondary spaces for health disciplines, including waiving tuition fees.
If Premier Ford doesn't like our plan, then what's his? Premier Ford likes to say that Ontario is open for business, but how long will that be true when our healthcare system is closed?
There are premiers out there that are looking to make improvements to healthcare.
This week, Newfoundland and Labrador announced 8 measures designed to recruit and keep nurses, including retention and signing bonuses, childcare, and mental health supports.
We're here to announce hope for the registered nurses, the nurse practitioners, and the healthcare workers and our patients.
We started this a couple of months ago with the Nurses Think Tank, and then immediately actioned the items that came out of it.
The kind of collaboration sadly lacking in Ontario, where a new government promise to fast-track doctors trained outside of Canada is being met with skepticism by doctors and nurses. And the Premier's reassurances that 90% of emergency room patients receive proper care are being denounced as misleading.
Only 24% of patients requiring admission to hospital meet the provincial benchmark.
A long way to go, it seems, before Canada's largest province makes a concerted push to fix healthcare. Ross Lord, Global News.
All this while monkeypox cases are climbing in Canada and the window to stamp out the virus is rapidly closing. Nearly 2 weeks after the World Health Organization declared it a public health emergency and a day after the U.S. followed suit, health experts are now urging Canadian officials to take action. Jamie Mauracher reports, and a warning, some of the images in this story are graphic.
Wesley Wallace hopes it's his last day in quarantine.
Tomorrow is doctor, haircut, and gym.
after nearly a month inside suffering from monkeypox.
I'm hoping my face will look back to normal, hopefully in a couple of weeks. See.
Across North America, cases of the disease have been on the rise, surpassing 7,000 in the U.S., the most of any country in the world.
We are going to do everything that we can to end this outbreak.
Thursday, the Biden administration declared the outbreak an emergency, unlocking money and resources to acquire and administer more vaccines as some Americans scrambled to get a shot. Canada hasn't faced the same problems with supply and demand, but as cases here approach 1,000, there are concerns about the possible impact of a global supply shortage.
Theoretically, we should be able to eradicate monkeypox if we had enough vaccine. And so vaccination is really critical for getting this virus under control.
The Public Health Agency of Canada says it's deploying over 80,000 doses to provinces and territories, but it would not comment on declaring a national emergency, even after the World Health Organization has.
If Canada doesn't want to declare a public health emergency after the International Organization on Health does, then I think it would be important to explain why.
Quebec succeeded in tamping down case counts without federal involvement. In Ontario, however, cases are surging. The province's health ministry didn't respond to our request on whether it's considering any emergency measures.
If we have sort of a hodgepodge approach to this, so some cities or provinces do it one way and others do it a different way, we're going to lose our opportunity to control it.
Leaving federal authorities little time to decide if and when they will step in. Jamie Mauracher, Global News, Toronto.
The federal government is moving to ban handgun imports in this country in the latest effort to get firearms off our streets.
We can't tolerate the status quo. As I said, we've seen additional loss of innocent life in Montreal, 3 more people lost to gun violence in the last few days. We continue to see shootings here in my hometown, in Toronto, and right across the country. The status quo is unacceptable.
The ban will go into effect in 2 weeks, and it's going to stay in place until Parliament votes on Bill C-21. That is designed to strengthen Canada's gun laws. The Public Safety Minister says that vote will take place hopefully this fall. Our Ottawa Bureau Chief Mercedes Stephenson joins us now. So, Mercedes, what exactly is this ban?
So, Farah, what this will be is a ban on the import of handguns to Canada. Of course, that would be legal handguns. And it's being done by implementing a stop on the import permit coming into Canada. So this is actually the Foreign Affairs Minister that will do it, and it's a stopgap measure until Parliament can pass that legislation. It's something that's politically important for the Liberals to do. It's on brand for them, but it's a bit rare. Typically, this kind of thing would go through Parliament, but in this particular case, it will be going through the import ban instead. The vast majority of legally imported handguns to Canada come from the United States, so this will hopefully address some of that, they're saying. But it is also designed to address a flaw in their previous announcement, which was that after they announced it, there was a rush on buying handguns because people knew they were going to be banned. There'll still be 2 weeks to do this, but it will slow down some of that panic buying, and they're hoping will cap the number of handguns being bought in Canada.
Okay, so what does this mean, though, for guns on the streets?
Well, that's the big question, is how many of the handguns being used in crime on the street are bought by legal owners and stolen or used by legal owners versus those that are being smuggled. And critics and a lot of experts have said, you know, there is a huge problem with smuggled handguns coming across into Canada, especially in places like Toronto or Vancouver. This only addresses the legal owners who are buying it and stops them. It does not stop the illegal transfer of guns across the border. And experts say, you know, it's time to start tracking where these guns come from, so we have a sense of just how many this kind of a measure could stop and how much more is needed.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Mercedes Stephenson in Ottawa. The fallout from U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan continues to escalate, with China now cutting off high-level cooperation with the U.S. in several key areas, including military communications and crime prevention and climate change talks. For the third straight day, Chinese military jets scrambled over the Taiwan Strait as the country's largest ever live fire drills are set to continue through the weekend. Beijing also demonstrating its outrage by summoning the American ambassador in Beijing and halting agricultural imports from the island. China claims Taiwan as its own territory under the One China policy, while Taiwan rejects those claims and is vowing to defend itself. At least 8 people were killed in a series of Israeli airstrikes in Gaza. Israel says the strike targeted and killed a commander of the Islamic Jihad group, but Gaza's health ministry says 7 other people, including a 5-year-old girl, also died when the missiles hit the apartment building in Gaza City and 3 other sites. At least 40 others were hurt. These attacks follow days of escalating tension following the arrest of a senior Palestinian leader by Israel and the closure of a key border crossing into Gaza. The top diplomats from both the U.S. and Russia say negotiations are set to begin for a prisoner exchange involving basketball star Brittany Griner. On Thursday, Griner was convicted on a drug charge by a Russian judge and sentenced to 9 years in prison. Speaking at separate events, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said negotiations would be conducted through a special channel.
We put forward, as you know, a substantial proposal that Russia should engage with us on. And what Foreign Minister Lavrov said this morning and said publicly is that they are prepared to engage through channels we've established to do just that, and we'll be pursuing that.
The Biden administration has offered to trade imprisoned Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout for Griner and Paul Whelan, who is a former U.S. Marine who's also jailed in Russia. 3 more ships carrying Ukrainian grain have left port under the UN-brokered Safe Passage deal. The ships are carrying a total of nearly 60,000 tons of corn and heading for ports in Britain, Ireland, and Turkey. Ukraine is a major grain exporter, but shipments were frozen with the beginning of the war, driving up global food prices and prompting fears of food shortages in Africa and the Middle East. Ukraine's government is now calling for the Safe Passage Agreement to be expanded to include more of its exports, such as metals. Drought emergencies are being declared in parts of Western Europe as the continent is in the grips of the 3rd heat wave of the summer. Temperatures in France hitting 40 degrees, forcing the implementation of water use restrictions in an effort to preserve crops. Italy has now recorded its driest year since record-keeping began in 1800. Rainfall is down by 46% across the country, with the north of the country being the worst affected, including the Po River Valley, a major food-producing zone. Temperatures in those areas topped 37 degrees today. The trial of a Dutch man accused of extorting a BC teen, Amanda Todd, winds down. Coming up, what the jury was told to keep in mind when it deliberates. A decade after BC teenager Amanda Todd took her own life following years of online harassment, the trial of her alleged tormentor is coming to a close. Dutch authorities arrested Aiden Coben in 2014 at an isolated cabin in the Netherlands. He's accused of using nearly 24 online profiles to extort her. Rumina Daya joins us now from the courthouse where the jury has just begun deliberating. Rumina.
Farah, there is no question 15-year-old Amanda Todd was the victim of crimes. But who was behind the online sextortion? Identity is at the center of this case. Crown is trying to prove 44-year-old Dutch citizen Aiden Coben was behind 22 phony user accounts used to sexually blackmail the BC teen through Facebook half a world away. Amanda killed herself in 2012, weeks before the teen shared her story of blackmail, torment, and depression in a haunting YouTube video viewed by millions worldwide.
I'm hopeful, but I can't base my hope on 100% because if I don't hear those words of guilty 5 times, I'll be really upset, I'll be really disappointed, and I'll go down that rabbit hole. It's not only me that has been advocating and making a voice the story of Amanda, it's everyone that has embraced her story.
A colossal amount of evidence was seized from Coben's holiday home in the Netherlands, including several hard drives, the name Amanda Todd appearing multiple times. Crown claims the hard drives contain enough information to prove only one person is responsible. Defense told the jury there is no link between the online extortionist and Coben, arguing the evidence shows other people were using the Facebook accounts, plus some of the devices showing communication with Amanda could have come into Coben's possession because he was a computer repairman. Justice Devlin warned the jury Amanda's death is not part of this trial. Coben has pleaded not guilty to all 5 charges, including possession of child pornography, extortion, and criminal harassment. Farah.
Rumina Daya in New Westminster, BC. Thank you, Rumina. One day after a jury hit right-wing conspiracy theorist and InfoWars host Alex Jones with a $4 million defamation judgment, the jurors have decided that he'll also have to pay punitive damages as well in the amount of more than $45 million. The money is being awarded to the parents of a 6-year-old boy killed in the Sandy Hook massacre, who sued Jones for claiming the school shooting was a hoax. The jury heard expert testimony and analysis about the value of the web of media organizations and shell companies controlled by Jones, estimated at between $135 and $270 million. Help wanted ahead, what some employers are doing when they can't find a human to hire. Despite a larger than expected number of jobs lost, the overall unemployment rate across Canada remains at a record low, 4.9%. Now, it's great news for workers, but it can make things more challenging for businesses. As Anne Gaviola explains, the pandemic has paved the way for automation in a job market where employers are struggling to find workers.
There are more than 1 million job vacancies across Canada right now, and good luck to employers trying to find workers to fill them.
Everybody's facing the same challenge these days. Part of it is obviously compensation, but part of it is also how do we treat our employees.
Labor experts say prolonged staffing shortages and COVID policies are only adding to the case for increasing automation in the workforce. After all, robots don't call in sick, don't spread sickness, and don't need rest. Like this robot barista in Toronto's Kensington Market neighborhood.
You might mistake this for vending machine coffee, but it's made on demand from beans to cup in under 2 minutes. Fully contactless and open 24/7.
It's good. I'm no matcha expert, but it's cold and it's refreshing.
What started with 1 location in 2020 has now become 5.
I think this is kind of where we're going as a society.
I have mixed feelings about a robot from a jobs perspective.
The makers of these robot barista cafes say they're job creators, not job killers.
There's the whole back-end system that we have in place that has a whole lot of people running it and developing it.
Their cost savings comes from low overhead, and they plan to expand across Canada and the U.S.
We're getting a tremendous interest, especially in the U.S. And also here with the universities in Canada, where the labor market is so tight that they just cannot get the people in to actually get the jobs filled.
With automation accelerating because of the pandemic, income inequality concerns also increase, with lower income earners likely most at risk.
We are embarking into a new type of economy that we're not prepared to regulate or manage. And I don't think our societies are ready for that. But that is the tidal wave of change that is coming in this coming era.
He predicts that tidal wave of change could unfold over the next 5 to 10 years. Whether we're ready for it is a whole other matter. Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
Up next, the new Italian trattoria aiming to be the cat's meow in New York City. New York is always a foodie's delight, boasting some of the best restaurants in the world. Well, a fancy new pop-up is offering quite the unique feast. As Abigail Beeman reports, the Italian-style trattoria was inspired by some of the most finicky eaters.
It doesn't really look like cat food, and to be clear, it's not cat food, but it may remind you of your feline's favorite dish. Welcome to Gatto Bianco. That means white cat in Italian, a 2-night-only New York City pop-up restaurant meant to help cat owners understand how their cats experience food.
If I could love a meal as much as an orange cat loves eating at any time of the day, I think life would be better for everybody.
Doug Ferguson is an official cat whisperer at Vancouver's Cafe.
In my time working here, I have learned to never underestimate how crazy some cat crazy people are.
Only 16 cat companions will get to partake, and it's free.
Is it something you would eat, or is it something your cat would eat?
Probably both. I personally probably wouldn't go there, but
it's interesting.
There's an online recipe book should you want to try things at home, such as brassato di manzo or lemon panna cotta, all inspired by Fancy Feast wet cat food.
To which Taco Bell responded, "Hey, wet meat is our thing."
Whether you have feline fervor or are contra kitties, the marketing move is the cat's pajamas.
Representatives for Fancy Feast described the experience, saying the dishes at Gato Bianco are prepared in ways that help cat owners understand how their cats experience food, which is begrudgingly while waiting for you to die so they can eat your eyeballs.
There is one hitch. Due to health and safety guidelines, you can't actually bring your cat to Gato Bianco. You're better off at the Cat Cafe. Abigail Beeman, Global News, Ottawa.
What's the point then? That's it for Global National for Friday night. I'm Farah Nasser. On behalf of our whole team here, I want to thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. Tonight's Your Canada is this nighttime shot of Canada Place in downtown Vancouver. We love seeing your Canada, so please keep sending us your pictures to viewers at globalnational.com. Jeff Semple will be on the anchor desk over the weekend. Until Monday, take care of yourselves and each other. Good night.